Welcome to another Plate Stack Chat with me, Jason from Jason CF Media. And every week I am joined by some wonderful guests for a lovely chat. And I can't wait to introduce them this week. So let's get straight to it. My first guest would describe herself as someone who primarily trains CrossFit. However, despite that being her focus, she has also managed to pick up a handful of gold medals and 16 state records in powerlifting. I'm very happy to welcome the charming Dani Edgel. Welcome, Dani. How are you feeling?
Doing well. Thank you.
I've got questions about the powerlifting, but before we get to that, let's bring in our second guest because we are not alone. And with us today is, well, it's just a mum, isn't it? Just a mum who loves to do CrossFit. She does CrossFit to stay healthy for her kids. She did also finish third at the CrossFit Games. And last time I checked, Laura Horvath and Emma Lawson don't have children. So technically, she is the fittest mum on earth. Please welcome Arielle Loewen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Arielle, how are you?
I'm good. My breath is slowly coming down. I just ran in from working out. Bear with me.
That's the full CrossFit package right there, isn't it?
That's right.
And I didn't prepare a nice introduction for your daughter, so I feel bad now. But
this is Arielle Loewen, 5 years old, my sidekick, partner in crime.
The tongue out.
Yeah. We have fun together.
So, yeah, if you just want to pan the camera over, we'll interview her. That's probably where we'll get all the real goss. Your mum says she's training a lot. She says her diet is absolutely on point. Is that true?
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that maybe Dani and Arielle you've not met before.
No.
Mm-mm.
But I think, Dani, you said off mic that you are very aware of who Arielle is, obviously.
Oh, yes. I mean, absolutely. 8 years into CrossFit, of course.
How long have you been? So you've been doing CrossFit 8 years, you said, Dani.
Yes.
Okay.
How long have you been doing CrossFit, Arielle, in total?
I started in 2012. So 12 years. So pretty similar. Dani, you've been doing it a long time as well.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So will this be your 8th open?
Yes.
Or not? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be my 8th open.
Will this be your 12th open then, Arielle? Did you do the open every year?
I didn't. I didn't my first year, and then the year I was pregnant, I didn't because I had just had Blakely in January. So this will be my 10th year.
Oh, that's still very impressive, though, isn't it?
Thanks. 10 is a fun number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw someone post up, you know, the little cards that people are posting up with how many years they've done the open.
Mm-hmm.
And someone I know posted up theirs and it was 7. But this, like, the top of the 7 seems so small on the thing that it just looks like 1. And I'm like, oh, I thought you've been doing for CrossFit a lot longer than 1 year. That's disappointing.
Yeah. Congratulations.
I think it will be my 6th open officially. I skipped a year in the middle. I think it was when they moved the open. I think because they moved it to November, I want to say October, wasn't it? And then they moved it back to like February.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was when it went back that it was just like these are they're too close together.
Yeah.
And my wife was pregnant, which I feel is like, you know, you said you had to skip because you were pregnant. I kind of feel like sympathetically, I needed to be there to lend a hand. So I managed to skip as well, which was fine. But now that you kind of get the number, you're like, actually, maybe I could have just signed up anyway.
6 is great. 6 is great.
6 is great. Yeah. Every time I get really ill before the open. So last year I had an inner ear issue that meant that my balance mechanism had been knocked off leading up to the open. And then listeners of this podcast will have heard me coughing through the last like 10 episodes because I've just but everyone, look, I'm so much better now because I discovered that I didn't have a chest infection. I had 2 simultaneously at the same time. And so now both have been treated and I feel a lot better.
Overachiever.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's it's the CrossFit mentality, isn't it?
Right.
So I kind of wanted with the 2 of you on today to talk about CrossFit being fun. Okay. And I have my reasons of why just kind of CrossFit training in general is fun. And I want to sort of start with Dani, just because you were saying that you primarily train CrossFit still,
I do, yeah.
even though you're clearly a very gifted powerlifter.
Yes, yeah.
So, because you kind of feel like quite often people get in, like I see it with Olympic lifting, someone gets into CrossFit, they discover they're quite good at Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
And then once they're like, oh, actually, pretty good at this, they just shift over to, well, now I'm an Olympic lifter. That's my thing because I'm very good at this.
Yeah.
But you were saying like you only kind of start specifically training for the powerlifting in the lead up to a competition.
Yeah. I
Why?
predominantly train CrossFit because I mean, it's everything about it, it was kind of like the love at first sight, the full send pain cave. I mean, I love that feeling, and I love like setting goals. And with CrossFit, like, I mean, you forever can work on things. Like you never become good at everything. Like there's always something better that you can get to. So I just really enjoy CrossFit, and CrossFit is what got me strong enough to do very well in powerlifting in the first place. So yeah, I typically only follow a training cycle for powerlifting for about 90 days leading up to like worlds or nationals, and then train CrossFit the rest of the time. And I'll always add like strength days in as well, where I keep the heavy lifting volume higher than I would, with just traditional CrossFit, to keep my CNS primed for heavy lifting. But yeah, predominantly CrossFit.
Do you enjoy like if you're doing a WOD, are you kind of happy when there's maybe a heavy barbell in there because you're like, oh, that's sort of my wheelhouse? Or are you like, oh no, I really want to do some high school gymnastics because that's not what I get to do when I'm training for powerlifting?
Yeah, no, I mean, I obviously do love the barbell cycling for sure. I also like the high volume gymnastics stuff as well, because I wasn't always good at that, but I spent a long time working at it to get better at it. So, I mean, practice just makes you better. Really, it's the workouts that I dislike. I try to prioritize like a really long conditioning machine and running workout, because I'm only 5'4", and it requires a lot more energy exertion for me. So to like remain conditioned and things of that nature, I may not enjoy them as much, but they do translate well for me into other areas maybe that are better workouts for me.
That's so interesting, because I picture powerlifters, they love the bench and the chair because they'll do a lift and then they just sit there.
Yeah.
And you're like complete opposite. Like you like the
I don't fit in with the powerlifting community because I am like, I've only been competing in powerlifting for 4 years, CrossFit 8. And so like, I'm just different in that aspect. Like the rest thing, my body responds much better, like true CrossFit style, where it's less rest. Even in between heavy sets, I still do less rest too. So it's just different,
Is that like a weird vibe then at a competition? You're going back to the bar and people are like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah,
too soon,
like,
too soon.
Before I go out on the platform, and I'm the only one that's like worked myself up to that point. The only one using bands to warm up. Like I am different, and that's all right. Like I'm okay with it.
Well, you've got the titles. That's what's cool. It works.
Yeah, it has worked. So
yeah.
And CrossFit has worked for it as well. It's been translating well into powerlifting for me. So
how do they feel? Like, do they? You were saying kind of you don't fit in the community because of sort of this, but like, how do they feel? Imagine you go to like your powerlifting competition, you're there, you're like, oh, I'm a serious powerlifter, this is everything to me, and then this CrossFitter walks in and doesn't just walk in and perform, but walks in and walks away with the gold, and then you're like, hold on a second, this is Are they cool with that? Are they happy about this?
It definitely ruffles feathers, because in my bio, I like to put that I train CrossFit, that, like CrossFit is one of my favorite things to do in my free time. And I wear all of the CrossFit gear when I'm at my meets. And so, yeah, I mean, my first powerlifting meet, I broke a state record, took first in my weight class. And then my fifth meet was a world championship, and I took home a gold medal there and broke all of the state records there. So it definitely like double takes. There are women that have been competing in the sport for 12 years, like they live and breathe it. And then there's just me who trickles in, had been doing it for like a year and a half, and, was at a world championship. So it's just, yeah, different. But granted, I mean, we know with CrossFit, like CrossFit it makes you very well-rounded, and it gets you very strong. So
despite what people outside like to say.
Despite what people outside like to say, that we just use 65-pound bars, and burpees all day long. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe you can convince some of them to sign up for the Open, as we've been talking about that before. So they get all these powerlifters in.
Community, but
and the reason it kind of, I thought it would be fun with the two of you to talk about this is because, Arielle, I saw you interviewed, I can't remember, I'm going to guess it was Savannah. Like, it's pretty good guess, isn't it, if I say that? It probably was.
Right.
But you were talking, and now I think about it, I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was like talking about like off-season training and kind of, ramping up to the Open and things like that. And you were just saying how, well, you just train CrossFit anyway because that's what you love to do. So even kind of in the off season, you're still training CrossFit because that's just the way you do it.
Right.
Is that just because you just enjoy it and sort of you weren't, because you kind of had an interesting story of getting to the games in the first place.
Right. Very similar to Dani. I just enjoy CrossFit. So even like after pregnancy, the goal was never, oh, let's go to the games. It was like, no, I just go to the CrossFit class because it's what I do. It's fun and very different. I realized this at Wodapalooza this past, a month ago. A lot of my competitors in the off season chill. Like they take it very easy. They'll do this, they'll do that. They'll get outside the gym. But I thoroughly enjoy doing a Metcon every day because I feel better whenever I sweat and lay on the floor. I can leave mentally feeling better, physically feeling better. So for me, I just really enjoy showing up to the gym and working out. And so all year long, I'll do that. But kind of like Dani said, as it gets closer to specific competitions, I'll do specific things to help me peak for those competitions. But it's CrossFit like the whole year. And then just like little saturations of working a little bit harder depending on what competition's coming up.
Do you think that's quite unique on the kind of the level that you're at within CrossFit?
I didn't think it was until I talked to more people and hear that some of them are taking like all of December off, or all of December they'll just do a strength cycle, or they'll just do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? Don't you just do CrossFit all the time? And so I realized a lot of my competitors very much peak when they need to and relax when they need to.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it recently, and it seems almost like, for us, CrossFit's great because for me, the very below average normal CrossFit athlete in massive quotation marks. The great thing is that I go to CrossFit Bath. We've got the coaches there. They like, this is what you're doing, and it's like, oh great, today it's some Olympic lifting, and tomorrow it's some gymnastics, and this is like a longer one with a run, and it is that true essence of CrossFit that you are bringing in all these different disciplines into one place. And usually, obviously we've got a number of different coaches, but you could say the same person that is going to then coach me on my Olympic lifting is also coaching me on my rowing and my gymnastics and so on. But then you get to like your games level athletes, and it's sort of, you're still doing the same elements, but you have your specific Olympic lifting coach who's, an expert in Olympic lifting is going to help you. And then you've got your specific running kind of coach who's going to, and it's almost like, it's almost like CrossFit deconstructed, that you take the different elements of CrossFit and then partition them out to be like, well, I need to train specifically this part of it and then specifically that part. Whereas for the your average, gym goer who's doing CrossFit, it's like, oh, wonderful, we're bringing it all into one place. They're almost doing the opposite and saying, oh, well, we've got this competition where it's all been brought into one place, and to prepare for that, we need to take it to all those different spots and elements.
Right.
But maybe I'm wrong. That's just my, what do I know? I'm not a games athlete. It's just what I observe from the outside. So when I heard that you were just sort of, you love just training kind of classic, pure CrossFit most of the time, I was like, oh, that's nice.
It is. It's very refreshing. And I don't want to say it makes it a little bit more unique, but like the CrossFit games are CrossFit. And if you're like just going to focus on running, just going to focus on weightlifting, it almost takes away the fun of running and lifting in the same workout and just like combining them all.
And do you think that like it's favored you, particularly with the kind of shift in programming that we had since Boz came along doing it, where it was a lot more like, people are like, this isn't CrossFit. And then it's like, well, actually go back many years. Here's a journal article that talked about this kind of movement. So actually, if you've been doing CrossFit, this is CrossFit. So do you think that sort of helped a little bit with your success over the last couple of years?
Oh, I think a ton, because I did Dave's programming 2021. Granted, it was my rookie year. I was a little overwhelmed. 2022 was a game changer for me. I was like in the top 10 for majority of the weekend and all that. But what was funny is everybody was criticizing Boz for all these circus movements, how weird they are. And then traverses showed up, like on the parallel bars. The first time I'd ever done traverses was my first day at the CrossFit affiliate in 2012. And so I'm like, these aren't new. Back in the day, this was like OG stuff. We had traverses for the warm-up almost every time. It's just like the new age CrossFitters don't know about it, but that's the OG stuff.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes in cycles like that as well. I mean, even with like when wall walks came in, I mean, now we seem to do them all the time. I like a wall walk. I'm actually, I'm not good at a lot of stuff, but it's one of the few things that I can do quite well. But I was also one of the people that had kind of fallen into that thing where when I started doing the classes, it was like you do wall walks because that was a scaling option to handstand, it's like a strict handstand push-up. And as soon as I could do strict handstand push-ups, whenever it showed up in a workout, usually it was, well, if you're going to scale, do a wall walk, but if you can do handstand push-ups, there you go. And it wasn't until they sort of showed up in the open that suddenly they started again getting programmed in classes a bit more of, no, you're all doing wall walks no matter what. Right. But yeah, I think that we will get into these kind of cycles where movements come back that it's sort of like, you should have still been. I mean, the other one I think about is the crossover. So admittedly, the double crossover is, a little bit sneaky, but like we would do nearly every time we have double unders in a class during the warm up, we would have done single skips, like power skips where you're kind of jumping higher, probably some kind of crossover skip before then doing double unders, or if you had double unders, doing double unders, and if you were practicing double unders, maybe some time to practice before deciding what you were going to do in the workout. So it's a similar thing. I think maybe at like games level, you just get so good at certain things that it's like, well, kind of you can skip some of the beginner elements, but then they show up again and you're like, uh-oh, I need to know how to do these.
Right.
Any skills that you're a particular fan of, Dani? You were saying you like the kind of high skill gymnastics when that shows up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like brute strength, so I like strict handstand push-ups and bar muscle-ups and ring muscle-ups, things like that. I mean, it took so long to learn how to do those skills and then to be able to cycle them under fatigue to where I get really excited when they're programmed in.
What was the last workout of the open last year with the strict handstand push-ups and snatches and double unders? Did you love that one?
Yeah, I did enjoy that workout. Granted, I was really sick during that workout. I had just gotten back from Mexico and I had E. coli and the norovirus. So I did that workout, finished it, and drove straight to urgent care to get fluids. So,
oh my gosh, girl.
But I would have normally really enjoyed a workout like
I was going to say heavyweight and then a little bit of skill sounds right up your alley.
Yeah.
I mean, the annoying thing is I reckon you probably did better than me in that workout anyway. now I've heard the backstory and I'm like, oh, that's a depressing thought. That was this is my problem with the Open generally, is that the I'm also quite small like you, Dani, but unfortunately I'm not as strong as you by the looks of things. So that hurts. But like every time strict handstand push-ups are hidden behind a heavy barbell. And I think this time I would have like needed to snatch close to my 1 rep max like 5-6 times to get to the thing. I'm like, that's not happening after all those wall walks and double unders and everything. So that was not my favorite workout, but it was fine. I did it.
I think my husband loves listening to podcasts. So he recently listened. Dave Castro was on, I think it was on something, but my husband said, Dave Castro said this is going to be the hardest Open ever. And I was like, well, you have to understand, Dave Castro says that every year. So, he's just the pot stirrer. So we'll see what that really means here in a few weeks.
What will be interesting, so I also, like your husband, listen to a lot of podcasts because I've spent far too much time outside. So, and also, like your husband, I used to play Donkey Kong, and we were talking about that today. I actually exchanged a message with your husband today about that, but unrelated. It popped up now. But Boz, I listened to Boz on the CrossFit Games podcast, and that was very interesting because it almost feels like, well, I didn't actually realize, and I don't think many realize until it sort of spelled out how many elements were incorporated due to COVID and sort of the lockdowns and people having to do the Open at home, and the Open being a potential qualifier to the games or to the next stage that was also going to be online. And it was talking about things like the floor plan and the equipment list. And these were all elements that now we sort of took for granted, but were actually introduced when the Open was a lot more serious because of it being, a direct qualifier into these kind of virtual games. So it sounds like this year there's going to be a minimal floor plan. It's like
that's what I've heard too.
Yeah, floor plan for safety. But basically, it'll be like if there's a pull-up bar that you're using, there will be the bar. The barbell needs to be a minimum of X meters from the pull-up bar, just so nobody puts it underneath to cut down transition time. No equipment list, but also the no equipment list also sort of tied into sounding like it's going to be equipment that every box should definitely have, and also the majority of kind of well-equipped home gyms would have, is kind of the vibe that you're picking up. So I wonder though as well if the kind of like the sort of Pat Sherwood mentality of if you're just giving someone like an empty barbell, then they have no excuse to put it down, and if it could be hard in that sense, like there's not going to be as many challenging, there may be not going to be those movements that stop people, and so you've got no excuse to rest, which for me is like that's fine. I'll just go at my slow snail pace anyway and I'll be fine. But Arielle, you're going up against the best in the world, and that, and you need to keep that pace kind of insanely high. So maybe that's why it will be so hard. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And then the other question a lot of people have got is quarterfinals, because you've got to allocate for the, you've got 25% now going. So if you want people to pay to play, it needs to be accessible enough for them to at least have a go at some of the workouts.
Right.
But it's also qualifying to, a very limited number of semi-final positions now. So you've also got to kind of guarantee that. So I think that will be the more tricky kind of programming balance that they'll need to hit, will be for quarterfinals. But not my problem. I don't know. I don't have to write the programming. I just turn up to the Open, don't I? Yeah. Are you? I mean, you're looking forward to the season kicking off. It's so soon now, and when this Well, when this comes out, it will be even sooner because we're recording quite in advance, guys. But this will be out potentially days before, or maybe day before the Open kicks off.
Oh,
Any
how
words
fun.
of any words of wisdom for future Arielle before the Open?
I feel like it's still far away. That's how my
Yeah.
brain works. I'm like, it's the end of February. Right now, it's the beginning of February. I have 20-something days to feel good about my breathing fitness, if that makes sense. So I'm doing a little bit more burpees, a little bit more thrusters, just to get uncomfortable and just get the heart pumping. What
That
about you,
does sound like you're preparing for the Open. Burpees and thrusters.
Yeah, I'm so curious, like at your level, what your capacity training looks like in like 30 days out. And obviously you're not training for the Open. But like when you're trying to time yourself to peak, I assume that you're gauging that more for like semifinals versus the Open and quarterfinals.
Right. So what it looks like for me, I try not to complicate it too much, but I have to cut myself off. I'll do a 30-minute cardio piece every day, whether interval style that equals 30 minutes or just a 30-minute grinder. Off season, I can only do 30 minutes. Like that's where I have to tell myself. And then as it gets closer to peaking, I up it to 40 minutes, whether it's like every 2 minutes with 1 minute rest, but it can only equal 40. So I just have to like rein myself back, which I was talking to Dylan about, and just like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I know what it's like to be really fit. I'm not really fit right now. And he's like, that's okay. Like you want to have the season of like, you're still working out. So when it's time to push hard and get crazy, you're mentally ready for it. Your body's fresh. So it's just no more than 30 minutes of cardio. And then I'll do my strength piece after cardio. And that's it.
That's an interesting thought though about like, because we talk about athletes peaking all the time, right? That's one. It's like one of the great throwaway lines, right? For like, well,
Right.
this is their Open score, but of course they're peaking. They're not peaking for the game; they're peaking for the semifinals, or this like Wodapalooza. It's like, well, this one won Wodapalooza, but you know what? Athletes weren't really peaking for Wodapalooza. It's kind of this lovely, beautiful kind of word we've got that we can throw into conversation. But I thought it's very interesting about like the mental battle that you have personally when you're not at your peak,
Right.
Because again, like general population, we all like now, I've gone on about it on every episode of this podcast so far, but about being ill, and it's not just the kind of that I've been ill, but I haven't trained for weeks. And it's frustrating. And actually, I saw someone today who doesn't do CrossFit. It's just me, oh, you lost some weight. I was like, don't tell me that. I'm already small. I can't afford to lose weight. But it's, you're not training. And then the Open's coming up and I'm thinking, oh, like, it's not going to be a good Open because I've not trained in the lead up to it at all. And I'm a very, average athlete. But even I'm like, oh, I don't feel my best. And that's frustrating. But when you can, you can peak to the level that you can, when you're in that kind of off-season zone and you're not, the fittest version of Arielle Loewen that exists, like, is that as well a mental battle of kind of having to rein yourself back in and just not be like, well, I always want to be the fittest version of myself?
It is, but peaking comes at a price. So it's also nice that, 2 days ago, me and Blakely made chocolate cupcakes. If I was peaking, we wouldn't be doing that. If I was peaking, I'd be working out a little bit longer in the garage. So there are nice things with not peaking where it's a little bit more balance, freedom, enjoyment. I can say yes to a few more things. As it gets closer to competing, I say no a lot more. So just like mentally, I'm like, oh, I want to do better. But then I also have the mental side of me, which is like, I'm healthy. Rest is good. You don't have to do more is not always better.
I do love the idea that in the off season, you're like a super baker because you know that once the season starts, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to say no to all of these things, but I want to be a good mum and I want to, bake cookies and cakes and things. So if anyone wants to visit you, it sounds like visiting you in the off season is probably the best time.
Yeah,
If they
and
want to get some.
I'm a very disciplined person, but I have low self-control. So if there's a plate of cookies, I will eat them. So I also know myself enough to know if I bake in the season, like I will eat it. And I don't need to be eating chocolate muffins.
Are you
What
a
about
good
you,
baker?
Dani? Do you like to bake?
I mean, I do, but probably not on your level. I like
Girl.
brownies. I love cookies. I mean, I'm the same way, very disciplined, but I lack some self-control. So if I have it in my house, it's hard. Like I cut weight for powerlifting, and so I track my macros, and like it's just not worth it to me.
Yeah.
To
What's
have
your
to do it.
normal weight? And then what do you compete at?
Yeah, I compete at 132, and I
Oh,
normally
wow.
sit at around 136 or so.
Okay.
But the hard thing is finding room to cut that without cutting muscle.
Yeah.
And usually there is some muscle that I lose in it. But
How long does it take you to cut?
so I normally start like probably 8 weeks out. So I try to make it a relatively short cut so that I can maximize during my training cycle, like not having to be in a calorie deficit when I'm trying to get stronger.
Right.
Worlds this last year, I mean, I had 2 meets that were too close together. And so I was in a cut for way too long. And unfortunately, I mean, I did well, but still it came at a cost. I didn't get strong. I just maintained strength, really was what happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you weigh every morning then? Is that how you are? How do you do it?
When I'm cutting, yeah, I do weigh every morning, but taking into consideration, obviously, like our cycles and sodium intake, carbs, all of that. But just to see where I am at consistently throughout the week, because I'm looking at the overall average.
Yeah.
And really, I'm only doing that like when I'm getting close to a meet. And outside of that, like right now, I'm in a calorie surplus. This is a bulking season, and I love
you're living life.
Yeah, like I am so pumped right now, feeling strong and just excited for like CrossFit and then like literally like right after the quarterfinals and then potentially semifinals because I'm in the Masters division now and they've changed. So that's kind of my goal, semis, and then I have to turn around and prepare for the national championship for powerlifting. So
if you qualified for the games, would you choose powerlifting or the games?
Oh, I would choose the games, but I'm not there yet. So I have never like I've never went fully all in with CrossFit where I've hired a private coach and all of that. I've only just followed competitive programming, but I've officially decided that this next season, that's what I want to do. Because if I put as much effort in, like I think that I do have the potential. It's just I haven't done it. So I don't know. I've always looked at CrossFit different too. I feel like it's such a hard sport. It's so humbling. And yeah, like you have to have the belief in yourself that you're capable of doing it, which I'm so curious for you, like being at the games, this, last games and being like, oh my gosh, I'm there. Like I have the potential of standing on the podium. I cannot even imagine what that feels like to be at that point, especially like so many years in to your journey. Like I can't imagine what that would be like.
You're sweet. Well, it was unreal, but it was almost like I was anticipating an event to go horrible and then my chances of the podium are gone. And it never happened. So I think we had the lifting event was Saturday night. That was the event that I was like, okay, this is the one that's going to go horrible. We have 2 attempts. My podium dreams are gone. And it didn't. And it was like after that event, like the belief was there, like, I can do this. This is great. But there's always that self-doubt, kind of like how you're saying, like, do I go all in CrossFit? Who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
You have to at least try. You never know what could happen. and you're already super disciplined. That's the hardest part for people.
Yeah, I know it is. Like CrossFit is just, it's a different breed of person. And it is like intimidating, and the roller coaster of emotions, like to even just in competition and things of that nature, like you were saying, I mean, thinking about one bad workout and what that can do. When in reality, like it really is more of the even keel across the board. I mean, you don't have to be incredible, like workout after workout, which is also what makes CrossFit amazing. But yeah, it is like a roller coaster of emotions for sure.
It is.
Do you think because like with powerlifting, you know your numbers going in, and so you can maybe you're feeling good and maybe you're going to hit a little bit heavier than you were expecting, or you're not feeling great and it's a little bit less than you'd hoped for, but you
Yeah.
kind of have a pretty solid ballpark
Yeah.
figure going in. Whereas the unknown and unknowable element of CrossFit and thinking like, or even sometimes just where a movement is within a workout.
Yeah.
That by the time you get to it, you think, well, I'm usually good at this, but my grip's completely gone from, either the workout we did before or the movement we did before. Do you think that's what kind of adds to the almost anxiety of like, oh, I just don't know, at competition, how I would deal with it kind of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no other sport that I have done that is as difficult as CrossFit is, because everything that I've done has been like specialized. And so it's totally different. And also the unpredictability of not knowing, what is going to be in a competition or in the open or, throughout the competitive season. Yeah, like it definitely adds a layer of anxiety. And for me personally, just like the imposter syndrome, that definitely kicks in. And that is like the thing that will crush your dreams, which again,
your
like,
own mind. Right.
yeah, like I think it's so inspiring, especially you being a mom, being able to take it to where you have, like, you're incredible, and it is very inspiring. But as far as like understanding that, I mean, even some of the other individuals in the like playing fields that aren't married, that don't have kids, they can go all in, with training, that are, like 19 years old. Like, how do you prevent yourself from getting in your head from that aspect?
Kind of like how you alluded to, all the powerlifters look on you weird because you do CrossFit. You found what works for you and it works great. I found the same thing. I know what my body responds to well, and it's not more volume. It's more intensity. So if I want to do more, I need to do more in that 30-minute window, not in a 5-hour window. So it's really just seeing what they do and saying like, okay, good, glad it works for them, but this works for me. And I'm not changing it because I feel great. And it's good now because I have the statistics to prove that it's good, because I got 3rd place. Before it was just like, hey, I'm here to have fun. This is what works for me. But since this past year, it's given me a lot of confidence of, people train 8 hours a day. I'm not going to, but what I'm doing is enough.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think you can fall into the trap of thinking like, oh, if this is what I can achieve because I train, half an hour, if I was training 8 hours, I'd be so much better. But as you said, that's not how it works. That's just not the reality of it. So I think that's such a nice mindset to have, and I'm sure your beautiful daughter appreciates that mum is not shutting herself away for 8 hours to train, but actually has time to do Play-Doh. What are we making, by the way? She's so active. I'm curious.
She for her birthday was a few weeks ago, she got a Play-Doh kit with like a dog that you put Play-Doh in his ear.
Oh, wow.
So all types of things. Yesterday we got a little crazy and mixed glitter in the Play-Doh.
Nice.
And so I'm regretting it a little bit now, but she loves it. So just anything fun.
Does she mix the colors? My daughter, as soon as we buy Play-Doh, she takes out like here's the yellow, here's the blue, smoosh together.
And you're like, no.
And then later wants them separated.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, that's not getting separated. Oh, nice. Does she train with you at all? Do you like have a little play around in the gym?
No, I
No?
don't. I'm one of those that I don't really think CrossFit is for kids. So
Right.
her thing, she's in gymnastics, she's in soccer. I think sports build a lot more foundations than
Yeah.
CrossFit does. So it's definitely, she can be in there 1 second. So she can definitely be in there when I'm stretching, warming up. But whenever I'm working out, like it's 30 minutes of intentional training. She's
Yeah.
not allowed in the gym. I'll turn on a Bluey episode for her or something. And it's my time to like go to work. So I clock in for like an hour and a half every day. I'm working.
Now, I was a big fan of Arielle before this podcast, and even got you to sign the Arielle Loewen card I had at FitFest, which was great.
Yeah, you did.
And I do have to tell you as well, I bumped into, I was just going, before we were recording this, I was down at the Bath Uni. We've got a competition tomorrow there. So I was doing some filming behind the scenes. And the MC, Sam, who used to host this podcast with me, I told him that I've got to head off because of recording a podcast. And I said, in fact, I said, I was thinking of inviting you on because, we used to do it together, but I knew you'd be here, so you wouldn't be at your home to record. I said with Arielle Loewen, and he was like, "Oh, she's my absolute favorite. You have to tell her she's my favorite." I was like, "Okay, I'll tell her." A nicer person would have told him, "Oh, actually, I've got, her signed card, and maybe I'll bring it tomorrow and give it to you." But I'm not that nice. I'm going to keep it. So,
Danny,
but,
he was awesome. I went to an event at FitFest in the UK, and his
Mhm.
friend Sam was the DJ, and we had a lifting event. So I had to do like lift a bar at 195 and then 200, 210. And he was like right by where I was about to start. He's like, "What song do you want to request to play?"
Oh, I love
And I was like,
that.
I've never had a DJ ask me that. And so I requested, it was right around Christmas. So I requested Christmas music. And he had like an actual hyped Christmas beat song that he played. It was awesome.
Okay. Well, he'll be happy to know that you remembered him. If this doesn't get cut for some reason, maybe it will accidentally get cut in the edit. Who knows? But if I'm kind enough to leave it on for him, Arielle, had very high opinion of you, and then you said that you put a Bluey episode on for your daughter, and I was like, oh yes, we've just elevated it once more, because I think that is one of the best kids shows you can sit them down to watch. So yeah. And Dani, if you've not seen Bluey,
I haven't.
then I recommend checking it out anyway, because it's very good, even for the grown-ups, I think.
It is good.
Duly noted.
Well, it's been lovely speaking with both of you, and I've loved the kind of interactions that you've both had. Some really great questions that I would not have thought about, which is really nice. So before another windstorm blows in and cuts out all of our connections, Dani, starting with you, if people want to follow your journey through the next couple of powerlifting meets, or who knows, when you start putting in 100% on CrossFit and try to make it to the games as a master, where's the best place for them to find you and follow you?
Yeah. So Instagram is Danimal_Z_animal. Or TikTok is Danimal_strong.
That's great. And as always, we'll put little links in the show notes or the description if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube. Arielle Loewen, as if people didn't already know where they can find you, where do you want people to go and find your journey?
Yeah, Instagram, just like Dani. I'll be on there. Mine's just Arielle Loewen. And then I actually just started a YouTube channel February 1st. So if you want to see a tour, I do work out from home in my home gym. If you want to see a tour of my home gym, you can check it out on YouTube.
Okay. And once again, there will be links there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you just got to literally click that link, jump straight to the channel, subscribe, do all the good things that you want to do to support Arielle. I would have loved to have asked you a few questions as well about kind of the pressure of going back this year now that you had such a strong finish, but I guess we'll just have to catch up again. Maybe once you've punched your ticket for the games or something, we'll catch you before then, and you can let us know.
You should, because when I'm punch my ticket, Dani, you'll be getting ready for your powerlifting meet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear about that as well.
Oh, okay. Let's put this all in the calendar, guys. We'll arrange part 2 now. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being kind enough to give me some of your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Go and follow their Instagram accounts and the YouTube channel for Arielle as well. Don't forget to do that. And I look forward to seeing everyone again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.